All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a pretty powerful idea called family worship, and it's all based on the work of Donald S. Whitney. He pinpoints a problem let's be honest, a lot of us can probably feel in our own homes, and he offers a very specific solution. So let's get right into it. So let's just kick things off with a question that I think, it probably hits pretty close to home for a lot of us. You know, with all the screens and the crazy schedules, are we really connecting as a family anymore? The source for this explainer puts that question right at the heart of its entire argument. And, the source gives a pretty blunt answer. It pulls this quote, and get this, it's from a UK government study reported by the BBC. It's almost funny in a sad kind of way, right? Basically saying that real, meaningful conversation at home, it's just breaking down. Okay, so this leads us right into the first major idea here, what the source calls the silent home. And it's seen as a uniquely modern problem. So the author of our source, Donald Whitney, when he heard that news report, two things immediately popped into his head. And these two thoughts, they really become the foundation for his whole argument. And yeah, these two reactions, they really set the stage perfectly. First, it's that sense of alarm. I mean, things have gotten pretty bad when the government is stepping in to worry about how families talk to each other. But then there's the second thought, and this is the big one. The solution isn't going to be found in some government class. No, the source argues it's a spiritual plan. And this is where things get, a lot deeper. Because according to the source, this isn't just about families not talking enough. That's just a symptom. The real issue, as the author sees it, is a full-blown crisis of faith. The author points to something that, honestly, is a pretty painful trend. We've seen it in studies, we've heard it from ministry leaders. A huge percentage of kids who grow up going to church, they just walk away after high school. So the source asks this really tough question. What if the real root of that problem starts right there in the home? And to really show what's at stake here, the source shares this incredibly powerful story. It's from a minister's widow. And her biggest regret in her entire life, it wasn't about something she did, it was about something they didn't do until it was almost too late. This isn't some new modern-day worry either. The source actually goes all the way back to the 1800s, to the famous preacher Charles Spurgeon. To make a point, he was saying this generations ago. This idea that if kids don't see faith lived out day in and day out at home, then why would they ever think it's real? All right, so that's the history, but what about right now? What about today? To figure that out, the source looks at some modern data from the Barna Research Group. They wanted to see if there's a disconnect, a gap between what parents say they believe and what they're actually doing. And wow, this chart, it just lays it all out there, doesn't it? I mean, look at that gap. You've got this huge number, 85% of parents, saying, yes, I have the primary responsibility for my child's faith. But then you ask them how many are actually discussing faith weekly. That number just craters. It's a tiny minority. The source presents this as this massive breakdown between what we say we believe and what we actually do. So after laying out this problem, this big disconnect, the source finally moves on to the proposed solution, a plan for the family. And here's the big idea, the core concept of this whole thing, family worship. So what is it? Well, the author defines it pretty simply. It's just the daily practice of a family getting together to read scripture, to pray, and to sing. That's it. It's meant to be the direct, intentional antidote to that silent home we were just talking about. And to show the kind of impact this can have, the source shares this, it's an incredible story. Picture this. A couple is celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. Their 5 grown kids get up to speak one by one, and without talking to each other beforehand, every single one of them thanked their dad for the exact same thing. And one of the sons, he just laid it out there. He said, "Dad, that daily family worship, that's what God used to convince me that Christianity was actually real." He goes on to say that even when he went astray later in life, he could never seriously doubt it because of that foundation. For the author, this is the key piece of evidence showing how this simple practice can make faith something tangible, something real. All right, so let's start to pull all these threads together. What's the bottom line here? What are the main takeaways the source really wants us to walk away with?
Okay, so the author's whole case really comes down to a few key things. First, going to church is absolutely crucial, but it can't be a substitute for what's happening at home. Second, just think about it. An hour a week at church, it's probably not enough to really impress the greatness of God on a kid. Third, a lot of parents feel responsible, but they end up delegating that training to the church. But the final point, and according to the source, this is the most important one, is that this whole practice isn't just a strategy to raise faithful kids. The ultimate reason for it, in the author's view, is that God deserves to be worshipped daily, right there in the home.
And that brings us to our final thought. Now, the source we've been looking at is focused on a very specific religious practice, for sure, but it kind of leaves us with this much bigger question to chew on, right? In this age where we're all so distracted, so disconnected, could something as simple as a shared daily ritual, whatever that ritual might be, could that be one of the keys to reconnecting and strengthening the modern family? It's a really compelling idea to finish on.